You know, it's funny. When we think about history's greatest moments of discovery, we usually picture the person like actively breaking down the door.
Oh, absolutely. The big dramatic entrance.
Right. We picture the explorer holding the torch high up in the dark cave, or, the visionary shouting from the mountaintop.
Yeah, we are utterly obsessed with the revealers of knowledge. We love the disruptors.
We really do. I mean, we build literal statues to them, the innovators, the people who pull back the curtain and show us something completely new.
Because we love the ones who bring the fire down from the mountain to share with the masses. It's a very heroic narrative.
It's extremely visible.
Exactly. The entire arc of human progress is usually taught as just a series of these dramatic, fiery revelations.
But, and this is what we're getting into today, we almost never pause to think about the person who actually has to, build the fireplace.
Right, the containment system.
Yeah, the one who stands there
Aye.
quietly, making sure that newly discovered fire doesn't just burn the whole house down.
Or get blown out by the wind, for that matter. Because once the fire is brought down from the mountain, somebody has to actually manage it.
The protector of the flame.
Which is a completely different skill set and, frankly, a completely different mindset. The revealer wants to broadcast, but the protector
wants to curate.
Yes, exactly.
And that is exactly our mission for today's deep dive. Welcome, everyone. Today, we are exploring the fascinating, hidden architecture of how sacred knowledge is protected rather than just how it's discovered.
It's a really unique angle.
It is. We are looking at a really intriguing document titled The 12 Apostles and Freemasonry, Chapter 11, Thaddeus.
And it's a text that it forces us to look at an ancient figure through a completely unconventional lens.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving away from standard biblical history here.
Right. We're looking at the functional mechanics of secrecy. So, okay, let's unpack this. We are looking at one of the most overlooked figures in history.
Highly overlooked.
Thaddeus, also known as Jude. But we aren't looking at him just as a standard historical guy in a robe, or facing the background of some famous painting.
No, we are examining him as a profound, mystical archetype, the guardian of the sacred word.
And if you are wondering why an ancient guardian archetype matters to you right now in your daily life, I mean, just look around.
Yeah, we live in a modern era that is absolutely overflowing with information. We are totally drowning in competing voices.
Hot takes, endless broadcasting.
And a relentless pressure to share everything we know immediately.
Exactly. So understanding this archetype, someone who curates and protects truth, rather than just, shouting into the void, it offers a radical counter perspective.
It really is all about the value of the filter. It's about being the gatekeeper of what is actually sacred.
But to understand what a guardian actually does, we first have to figure out who this specific guardian is.
Which is much harder than it sounds.
Oh, it's way harder. We have an immediate identity crisis on our hands with this guy.
Yeah, the historical and biblical records are notably murky when it comes to his name.
Murky is an understatement. You look at the ancient records and it's like, this guy is actively trying to avoid being perceived, like he's in the witness protection program for apostles or something.
Ah, right. Which is actually somewhat fitting for a figure shrouded in secrecy.
So true. You look at the gospel list, and Matthew refers to him as Lebbeus, whose surname was Thaddeus.
Right.
But then you flip over to Luke and the book of Acts, and they call him Judas, the brother of James.
And we have to firmly, emphatically clarify right here at the top.
Please do.
This is absolutely not Judas Iscariot.
A crucial distinction.
Very crucial. The early text compilers were clearly anxious about that association. Most esoteric traditions just consolidate all these various names, Thaddeus, Lebbeus, Judas of James, into one figure.
Right, they just call him Jude.
Exactly. Jude, the attributed author of the short, intense epistle of Jude.
It's so interesting to me because he is barely mentioned in the actual narratives.
He really stays in the background.
He does. He's not the revealer, like John, writing these massive mystical visions.
Yeah.
He's not the seeker, asking all the skeptical questions, like Thomas. And he's definitely not the bold visionary out in front, like Peter.
He's none of those things.
Imagine you're watching a movie, and there's a background actor who hasn't had a single line of dialogue for, 2 hours.
Right.
But then, right at the climax of the film, he walks straight up to the camera and asks the director the most profound question imaginable.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Because there is this singular defining moment for him in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 22.
Okay, set the scene for us.
So Jude, and again, the author explicitly notes not Iscariot, he speaks up and asks a least specific question.
Yeah.
He says, Lord, How is it that thou wilt manifest thyself unto us and not unto the world?
Not unto the world. I mean, he's basically looking at the velvet rope and asking how the VIP list is actually curated.
That's exactly what he's doing.
He's like, why are we getting the inside scoop and everyone else is left in the dark?
What's fascinating here is that this single question completely reveals his fundamental character. He is deeply concerned with the hiddenness of spiritual truth.
He isn't asking for more power.
No, or a better seat at the table. He is asking a question deeply rooted in discernment, in secrecy, and in esoteric transmission.
He wants to know the mechanics of the boundary.
Yes. He recognizes that divine light isn't meant for everyone all at once.
He's noticing that truth isn't democratic, which, frankly, is a tough pill to swallow today.
Oh, very tough.
We tend to think that if something is true, it should just be blasted on a billboard for everyone. But Jude is noticing a deliberate restriction.
Because he is asking about the psychological readiness of the recipient.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you hand an incredibly powerful, transformative truth to a mind that isn't prepared to integrate it, you don't enlighten them.
Right.
You break them. Or worse, they weaponize that truth for their own ego. Jude realizes that the world, meaning the uninitiated, the public square driven by base impulses, they just cannot handle the raw manifestation of the sacred.
So his entire identity is wrapped up in this idea of restricting access to protect the integrity of the knowledge.
Precisely.
Which perfectly explains how he actively defended that truth when it was threatened later on, because his primary weapon as a guardian wasn't a physical sword, at least not at first.
Right. It was his written text.
You could almost call him the apocalyptic postman.
I like that. The Epistle of Jude. It is a remarkable, incredibly dense piece of writing.
It is tiny, right? Literally just one chapter.
Very short.
But it is packed with heavy apocalyptic language. It's full of intense warnings against false teachers, and he famously praises those who contend for the faith once delivered unto the saints.
A very famous line.
But here's where I have to push back a little on this image of him as the ultimate conservative rule follower.
Okay, let's hear the contradiction.
So Jude is supposed to be the ultimate defender of the established faith, right? The guy holding the line against heresy.
Right, that's the standard view.
But to make his point in this letter, he references apocryphal, non-canonical texts.
He does?
He cites the Book of Enoch and the Assumption of Moses. He literally mentions Michael the archangel having a dispute with the devil over the physical body of Moses. Wait, so the ultimate defender of the faith is using rogue outside texts to make his point.
It seems wild, doesn't it?
That feels like the museum's security guard bringing unauthorized street art into the Louvre to explain the Mona Lisa.
It does seem contradictory if we assume his job is just to protect the public rule book. But Jude is operating on a completely different level here.
Okay, break that down for me.
By invoking Enoch and mystical Jewish traditions, he is deliberately aligning himself with a hidden spiritual current that runs alongside exoteric public religion.
Okay, let's define those terms for a second. Exoteric is the outward, public-facing stuff, right? The ceremonies everyone sees, the basic moral rules.
Correct. Exoteric is for the masses. And esoteric is the inner, hidden meaning.
The stuff behind the velvet rope.
Exactly. The deep mechanics of the universe that require initiation and serious study to understand. Jude's vigilance in the text against, as he calls them, dreamers who defile the flesh and those who speak evil of dignities isn't just him being cranky about people breaking behavioral rules.
It's deeper than that.
It is an initiatic defense.
Oh, I see. He's protecting the deep magic, not just the Sunday service.
Beautifully put. He recognizes that if the core hidden truths are distorted by unqualified teachers, these dreamers, the entire spiritual structure collapses.
Because they're messing with the foundation.
Right. These false teachers aren't just giving bad sermons. They are attempting to access and manipulate mystical hierarchies without the proper purification. Jude is stepping in to say, you don't have the clearance for this.
And because his role is so inherently tied to these hidden currents, this archetype is best understood not just through his short letter, but through a very specific set of esoteric symbols.
Yes, the visual language is key here.
There is an incredibly striking visual associated with Thaddeus in the source material. Let me paint the picture for you.
Go for it. The iconography does a lot of the heavy lifting.
Imagine a painting of Thaddeus. He's bearded, wearing flowing ancient robes, and he's holding a sturdy wooden staff. But the environment he's in is wild.
It's not your standard biblical backdrop.
Not at all. He is standing on a black and white checkerboard floor, and he is entirely surrounded by deeply mystical symbols. On one side, resting on a stone altar next to a human skull, there is a glowing letter G, perfectly framed within a square and compass.
Classic esoteric symbolism.
Above him, an all-seeing eye is radiating golden light. In the background, there's a flaming heart, several lit candles, and he is framed by this stunning cosmic archway made of stars and a crescent moon.
Every single element in that tapestry is a deliberate mechanical description of what a guardian actually does.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's break down the mechanics of those symbols. Start with that checkerboard floor.
The black and white tiles.
Yeah. He's anchored in duality. Good and evil, light and dark, ignorance and wisdom. The guardian has to navigate both to protect the threshold.
And look at the altar. You mentioned a skull resting next to a glowing letter G.
Right, which seems kind of intense.
It is. In Masonic and esoteric traditions, the G often represents geometry or deity, the eternal, unchanging truth of the universe. The skull, of course, represents mortality, the fleeting nature of human life.
So he is literally standing in the space between our temporary human existence and the eternal glowing truth.
Exactly. He occupies the middle ground.
He is exactly like the curator of a priceless ancient museum. He didn't paint the masterpieces hanging on the walls, he didn't sculpt the statues, but he holds the heavy ring of keys, and he stands at the door to ensure nobody defaces them.
That curator metaphor maps perfectly onto Hermetic philosophy. In those traditions, guardians are essential liminal figures.
Liminal mean like threshold figures.
Right. They operate at the threshold between the lower material worlds and the higher spiritual realms. Their function is an active filtration system.
For those who don't spend their weekends reading Kabbalah, this is incredibly similar to the angel Metatron.
Oh, Metatron is a fantastic parallel.
Because Metatron isn't just an angel with a flaming sword. He's the ultimate cosmic archivist.
Yes. In Kabbalistic thought, the raw, unfiltered light of the divine is too intense for human comprehension. It would literally annihilate us.
Too much voltage.
Exactly. So Metatron acts as the celestial scribe and the mediator. He steps down the voltage of that divine light, translating it into a form, like the Torah, that humanity can actually survive interacting with.
Wow.
Jude is echoing that exact celestial archetype on an earthly, apostolic level. He manages the voltage.
He manages the voltage. That perfectly explains the lit candles and the radiating light in the image. It brings to mind the Rosicrucian and alchemical symbol of the flaming torch.
The torch held in trust.
Right, he's just holding it.
Yeah.
Jude doesn't claim the light as his own invention. He didn't create the flame, and he isn't trying to take credit for it.
He faithfully holds it in trust, standing watch in a darkened temple, making sure it doesn't go out.
Which moves us from the abstract and the mystical into something incredibly functional.
Yes, the practical application.
Because this idea of the silent guardian didn't just stay trapped in ancient texts or Renaissance paintings, you know. It became a foundational role within the physical traditions of Freemasonry.
They took this abstract concept of managing the voltage and gave it a literal job description within the lodge.
Right, because Freemasonry is essentially a system of morality veiled in allegory, right? Illustrated by symbols.
Exactly. So they need physical roles to act out these philosophical concepts. And the most prominent parallel to Jude in that system is the Tyler.
In a Masonic lodge, the Tyler is the officer who physically guards the outer door. And he doesn't just stand there checking IDs, he guards the door with a drawn sword.
Specifically to prevent the mysteries of the lodge from being profaned by the outside world.
But the sword isn't about violence, is it?
No, the sword is not a weapon of aggression here. It's a tool of separation. It severs the profane, meaning that which is outside the temple, from the sacred, which is inside.
And it perfectly mirrors Jude's letter. Jude uses the fierce apocalyptic language of his epistle exactly like the Tyler uses a physical blade.
Cutting through the falsehoods.
Yeah, he is cutting through the lies of the false teachers to protect the sanctum. But, I mean, there's a huge psychological toll to being the Tyler, isn't there?
Oh, massive.
Think about it. Everyone else is inside the lodge room. They are participating in the ritual, enjoying the brotherhood, experiencing the light. The Tyler is literally out in the cold hallway, staring at a closed door.
We connect this to the bigger picture. The Tyler represents a spiritual sacrifice. He accepts isolation to guarantee the security of the community.
Wow. He's taking one for the team, spiritually.
He is a watchman charged with internal fidelity, not outward spectacle. He's the guy making sure the foundation isn't cracking while everyone else is just mesmerized by the stained glass windows inside.
There is another massive Masonic connection here that the source brings up, the concept of the lost word in the Master Mason degree.
A very central theme.
According to the tradition, this sacred word, the ultimate truth or pronunciation of the divine, was lost when its chief architect, a figure named Hiram Abiff, was murdered.
And because it was lost, the remaining builders could only use substitute words.
Like placeholders.
Right. They had to continue the work of building the temple, but with an awareness that the ultimate central piece of knowledge was missing.
So what does a guardian do when the thing they are supposed to guard is gone?
That is the core dilemma. They guard the empty space.
They guard the empty space. That's powerful.
And that is perhaps the most profound psychological shift. Jude is positioned as the custodian of a buried treasure. He has to hold the space to guard the concept of the word until the candidate, or humanity, is actually worthy and capable of recovering it.
He's keeping the blueprint safe while the building is in ruins.
Exactly.
It's like in the Royal Arch tradition, where the story revolves around digging through the ruins of a destroyed temple to recover ancient sacred relics. You can't recover those relics unless someone preserved the memory of exactly where they were buried.
He preserves the doctrine and the total integrity of the word during the long, dark periods of history. It is a role of immense responsibility and absolutely zero glory.
Because you are guarding a vault that you know you will never get to open yourself.
Precisely.
There's even a specific order within the Allied Masonic degrees called the Secret Monitor. It specifically honors this kind of silent guardianship and fraternal protection.
It's an entire tradition built around the realization that someone has to watch the perimeter.
And that realization forces us to pivot from the theoretical to the intensely personal. We've explored the biblical origins, the intense visual symbolism of skulls and cosmic archways, and the literal Masonic applications of the Tyler sword.
But esoteric philosophy is useless if it doesn't change how you operate in the world.
Exactly. So how does this abstract metaphor of a guy holding a sword outside a lodge door actually help you, the listener, right now? We need to translate this into practical takeaways.
Let's do it.
What is the application of being a guardian today?
Well, first, it challenges our fundamental assumptions about value. We place so much societal value on being the teacher, the creator, or the influencer.
Everyone wants to be the guru.
Right. We assume that if you have knowledge, your immediate obligation is to broadcast it to as many people as possible.
But the first takeaway here is that not all are called to teach. Some are called to guard. Spiritual defense is an active, vital role.
Knowing when to close the door is a skill.
Yeah, knowing when to say no and when to protect your own mental or spiritual space from toxic intrusion is just as important as learning something new.
Consider how casual we have become with profound concepts. If you take a sacred truth, whether that's a deep psychological insight, a religious revelation, or just an intimate personal realization.
And you immediately plaster it all over social media for clout.
Yes. It loses its power. It becomes cheap commodification.
That brings up the nature of the word itself, which is the second big takeaway. In this mystical context, the word isn't merely a doctrine or a secret password you memorize to get into a club.
No, it is a divine vibration. It's the underlying structure of reality, and it must be protected from exploitation.
Because if you treat profound truths casually, they cannot transform you.
Jude teaches reverence. Sacred things must be guarded against those who would use them for ego-driven purposes. The guardian understands that some things require silence to incubate.
And that leads to the third lesson, the preservation of the spirit, not just the form. When Jude talks about the faith once delivered, he isn't saying you just memorize a dusty old book and yell at anyone who changes a comma.
Far from it. True spiritual work is transmissive. You have to preserve the actual living spirit of the tradition.
You can't just go through the motions or repeat empty rituals.
Exactly. The guardian has to understand the why behind the ritual, passing down the living flame intact to the next worthy generation, rather than just handing them a cold, dead torch.
So what does this all mean? I look at this ancient archetype, and I look at our current culture. You know, a culture of endless self-promotion, a frantic rush to be the one disrupting the industry, dropping the newest hot take.
It's exhausting.
Isn't there something radically countercultural, almost rebellious, about choosing to simply be the silent protector of knowledge instead?
It is entirely countercultural, and that is where its immense power lies.
Yeah.
In every lodge, in every community, in every family, and in every vital institution, there is a Jude.
A silent Tyler.
A quiet, vigilant figure. Someone who remains absolutely faithful to the core truth, even when it's deeply unpopular.
Even when it seems like everyone else has abandoned the hard work of preservation for the next shiny, easily digestible thing.
The profound value of this archetype is the mastery of discernment. It's the realization that spiritual defense is just as critical as spiritual discovery. The guardian doesn't need spectacular miracles to validate his worth.
He doesn't need to give the lengthy, crowd-pleasing sermons. He doesn't need the applause of the people inside the room.
Yeah.
He just stands there in the hallway, bearing the sword of fidelity and the torch of remembrance without needing a single drop of acclaim.
He is the ultimate anchor in a shifting tide. He ensures that when the world is finally ready for the fireplace is still intact.
Well, that wraps up our exploration of the shadowy, often ignored, but absolutely vital archetype of the Guardian. Thank you for joining us as we unpack the hidden architecture of Thaddeus, the Tyler of the Apostolic Lodge.
This raises an important question drawn straight from the core of this philosophy, and it's something I want you to carry with you. We live in a world absolutely saturated with noise, with a million competing voices demanding your immediate attention and reaction. As you go about your week, ask yourself, what are the specific sacred truths that you feel personally called to protect and preserve?
And when you inevitably find yourself standing at the door, making sure the newly discovered fire doesn't burn the house down, how will you sharpen your own blade of discernment to tell the true light from the false?